Good afternoon, everyone out there in internet land. It's a fine day today in Binghamton, New York, and it's 2024, and this is my very first Smart Conversation. I'm so delighted to have it with a friend of mine, Deborah Brown Volkman. Deborah, welcome.
Welcome. I'm your first.
You're my first for the year. You're my first
Wow.
for the year. This is Yvonne DeVita, by the way. I'm from Master Book Builders, and I like to talk to people who have written books. And Deborah has written a book. We're going to talk about her book, Childhood Trauma, Some Rise, Some Fall, How to Be One of the Lucky Ones Who Gets Back Up. Deborah, before I tell people a little bit more about you, tell me when you wrote this in 3 weeks. So this is
I
one
did.
thing, everyone. We generally, when I work with authors, it takes 6 months to sometimes 12 months to write a book. But you just sat down and wrote this.
Yes. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. It took a toll on me, but it was something that was meant to come out. So this was this is my sixth book. I
Yeah.
had not written a book for 20 years prior. And this was the book. This was the timing of the book, and this book needed to come out. I think I was writing it for 58 years in my head, and
Yeah.
I just needed to release it.
Yeah, that's what you've been saying. So everyone, I don't, like Deborah says, it's not easy to do it in 3 weeks, but she was incentivized because she'd been working on it for 58 years. So let me tell you about Deborah before we go much farther. For the past 20 years, she's been on the forefront of the coaching industry, and she's known as the go-to resource for goal achievement. I can attest to that. She's guided her clients through some of the toughest moments in their careers by empowering them to find new jobs, new careers, and new ways to overcome challenges in the workplace. And I see that every day in the posts that Deborah does on LinkedIn. She's not a therapist. This is really important, and we'll talk about it. She's not a therapist, and she doesn't claim to be one. She's a career coach. She's a regular person who went through tough beginnings. She survived, and she's healed herself. Her goal is to help you heal too. And she says here, some of the stories in this book, I've never told anyone. I have decided to come forward and tell them to you. And that's really a fantastic statement right there, Deborah, because we almost all of us, regardless of our upbringing, have those stories in our head, right? And we don't tell them. Why don't we tell them?
Because we don't want to tell them. We don't want to tell them. Even my husband, there were things in there, and he's known me. I know my husband over 30 years. We were dating for 10 years, and then we got married over 20. And even he didn't know it. There are things that you just keep to yourself. And I think you talk about things when you're ready. Even 30 years with another person, I don't think that you can find out every single thing about them. I think you find out things when it's the moment to find things when you're in your relationship or you're in your evolution, when it's just time to talk about it.
Yeah, one of the really important things about the book, everyone, is that Deborah tells us in her most authentic voice. So this is the thing about the book that I like, is this, when you read this book, and you can sit down and read this, it's a small book in one sitting. The authentic voice that you have, Deborah, in this book, and I've seen it in your other books, but those are business books, and this is a totally different format for you. The voice, I'm like privileged because I know Deborah, so I could hear Deborah's voice. But the reality is, when I was reading this book, that the voice I was hearing sometimes was my own voice.
Wow.
It sometimes made me cry.
Oh,
And that's what I'm talking about, being vulnerable. Deborah's vulnerable in this book. And honestly, I've got tears in my eyes right now.
wow. I feel it too. You and I, at this point, we're friends. So you know my voice. I know your voice. So to be able to touch you like that is pretty amazing. And also books,
Oh,
your
yeah.
books better than anybody that I know. And you liking this book and saying nice things about this book is an unbelievable testament to me. I'll joke and say, you don't have to be nice to me just because I'm your friend. I think you really, truly like the book, and that
I do.
that really touched me. That really touched
Yeah,
me.
I do. Everyone knows that I'm a hard sell when it comes to books and
Mhm.
whatnot. And I love the red. I would have liked a different cover, but you know what? Here's the thing. The cover serves the purpose because it immediately tells me, I tell my authors all this time, Deborah, I want to know what the book is about when I see the cover and the title. And it
Yes.
doesn't, there's not a lot of imagery that takes me away somewhere else.
Yes, it wasn't supposed to. Here's the title of the book. I'm not getting in the way of the title of the book. If you want pretty pictures, you could look somewhere else, but this is just, here it is. Here's the title. That's it.
And that you did that so well. That was so good. One of the other things that I really want to get into and talked about. So Deborah's story is similar to other stories of those of us who have had these difficult childhoods. And yes, we can use the word abuse. And it took me,
Mhm.
Deborah, until I was like, I don't know, in my 60s to use the word abuse to what happened to me. It was like she didn't beat me. She just treated me so poorly, and she used psychological ways to make me think I was worthless. So that's not abuse, but it really was.
I just want to say, especially when it's your parents, because if you talk badly about your parents, people say, oh, she brought you into the world. And it's almost like whatever they do, it gets pushed to the side. And you can love your mother, you can love your parents, but it doesn't mean that you want to spend time with them. Doesn't mean you want to spend time with them. And I think that that was part of the journey of, I just kept pushing myself to the side, pushing myself to the side. And I
Yeah.
said, you know what? I could love you, but I don't have to spend time with anybody and anybody who's not nice to me.
Yeah, I can so relate to that. And then so the stories are in here, everyone. And again, Deborah tells them so well, and she tells them from the perspective. I felt like you were at your computer writing this, and I felt like you were just your brain was saying, here it is, get it out there on the page. And again, it's almost like I was sitting there with you and you were telling me the story. So I think that was so very well done. That is part of
Yes.
the book that I like the best. But then,
Before you go to, but then I do want to
uh,
say something about that. All books are written in the mind first. There's no sitting down and coming up with something, even though there is, but all books are written in the mind first, just like all goals are reached in the mind first. So there was a brain piece, but there was also a spiritual piece where
mm,
I allowed it to channel through me. And so there were certain lines in the book that I said, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it, but I've learned that I need to trust that voice. And if it came to me, then it needs to go on paper. Some of the stuff was about my mom and my dad. My dad is no longer with us. So there's a difference between you write something when someone has passed. My mother is still alive, and there was things that I put in there. There was a line in there, was two lines in the book where one was, I said, she enabled him. She made
mhm,
excuses for his
mhm,
behavior, and she was an accomplice to his crimes. And she
yeah,
was, even though she was abused along with me, and that she never, not once, ever said she was sorry. And when that came to me, I was like, oh my God, she's still alive. Can I put this in the book? And
mm.
I said, the book, this needs to go in the book. If it came to me, it needs to go in. And it went in, and then she read it. We haven't talked about it, but she did read it. She did read it.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So both of my parents are gone. And the interesting, sometimes people come to me, they want to write a memoir, and they're like, I don't know whether I can put this in or put that in. And I refer them back to,
Yeah, as you're saying that, because I have people come to me also and said, "Can I do this?" And what we came to in these conversations is they're not afraid to write the book; they're afraid to publish it.
yes, exactly.
They're
But,
afraid what's
but,
going to happen to
but
them. Yeah, I'm sorry, you were looking for something.
no,
I
I'm looking
stopped
for my
you.
my favorite, and I usually have it right here. I don't know where I put it, but one of my favorite authors, it's a woman, and she said she tells her students, she teaches writing, and she tells her students that if they didn't want to be represented in the book the way they are, they should have behaved better. Just
Mhm.
say to yourself, what I tell people is this is your story. This is not their story. So they can sit down and write their story if that's what they want to do. But this is your story, and you have to write it the best way that you can and the way that you remember it. And
Yeah.
memory
Yes.
is memory is such a fleeting thing that Sometimes we don't remember things exactly as they were, and that's okay. You can still write about it. You can still tell the story about that.
And you get gaslighted. You get gaslighted because,
Oh,
because if I was able to heal all this with my mother, I probably wouldn't have written the book. So I had to heal it on my own. I sent her a copy of the book. She still hasn't talked to me about it. And it is my story told my way. And that was the note that I put in the book for her. And I said, I no intention of hurting you, but this is the story that it needed to be told. It healed me. I hope it healed you. She could easily tell me that I was wrong. And you know what? There might be things in there that I was wrong, but it didn't matter because it's my story and it needed to be told the way I needed to tell it. And that's why I'm complete with that piece because there was no intention to hurt, there was intention to heal.
exactly, exactly. And this is the kind of story, and it's told in the kind of way that, as I said, when I read it, there were many times when I thought it related to what I had gone through. So I feel like I lost 20 years of my life
Wow.
because I was so afraid to do more than exist. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't know how to be around people. I believed my mother when she told me I was worthless and I would never amount to anything. And so I didn't. I kind of just moved along in the very small little space that I was taking up. And then when I started having children, I was like, I can't do that anymore. I can't be that person. I have to be stronger. So I started standing up for myself and whatnot. So I love that part of the book that you were brave enough. It is a bravery to write about that, especially with one of the parents still alive. But what you did, which was genius and which makes this book so different, is you then took us into the business world and said, this could, if you've been through this kind of trauma, it's probably affecting how you are at work. Talk to us about that and how you said this isn't just the story of me growing up in this household, it's also the story of me and my career. Tell us about
Yes. Now I can't talk. I'm gonna come out. Okay. Where I felt the where I felt the most, I don't know why I can't talk. Where I felt the most worthless was at work.
while you get your throat back a little. I felt that was it really. When I was reading that, I thought it never ever occurred to me that some of the things that were happening to me and some of the jobs I had could have been influenced by that. Because sometimes you think that I've handled it. I'm all grown up now and I'm working and I'm out in the world and I'm okay. And so you forget, losing my voice now, you forget that it's still up there and it's still, right?
Yes. Okay. What has been one of the most important things for me in my life is my career. And I saw myself really doing amazing things in my career. I almost thought I was going to be like a little Oprah-ish, where I was going to get out there and spread the message, and I couldn't do it. And I couldn't do it because my childhood trauma held me back. And I always felt really bad about that. I really did. And I struggled in the workplace. I was like Jekyll and Hyde. One moment I was great because childhood abuse survivors are very resilient. You have to
Yes.
read the room, you have to see what's going on. You were very goal oriented. So I did great work in the workplace, but I didn't speak up. I didn't communicate because I wasn't allowed to growing up. So I was like Jekyll and Hyde. So one moment I was calm, and next minute I was screaming at people. And they didn't really know what to do with me. And I realized that it was holding me back. I had this vision in my head of where I wanted to go in my career, and I couldn't do it because my emotions, they kept holding me back. So the other piece is I'm a career coach. I'm a career coach. So I said, I'm going to stay in my wheelhouse. I'm going to talk about career. I'm going to help people. And it makes the book a little different because there's a lot of books out there about childhood trauma, but not one that's really specific to your career. Some rise, some fall. Some people do great. They become executives or athletes. Some people can't hold a job. But even if you have childhood trauma, there's a place that you can't go. And there was a place that I couldn't go. And I said, I need to heal. I need to get better first. I need to get better.
Yes, yeah, and the idea that when we're in the workplace, we bring our childhood trauma with us is so powerful because it influences how we react to things, which you talk about in the book. It influences our desire to achieve or not achieve. So I was always like, I'm just going to stay right here in the middle. I don't want anything. I can't achieve any of that up there, so I'm not even going to try to do it. And people would say to me, why don't you try? And I'd say, because I would fail. So why should I even attempt it?
It's interesting because we both grew up feeling worthless and we both did stuff. So I'm writing books, you're helping other people write books. It's just amazing that you can do it. You can do things and be successful in your career, even if you feel worthless.
And what happens is, and I think to your point, in the book also, in what I see you share on LinkedIn and what I know you must do when you're working with clients, is that part of the healing process is having someone else recognize the you that you don't see, that is there, but you don't see it. And it's also having someone else give you permission. I've always said this. I need someone to give me permission to be successful.
Even though you are,
Well,
like you're doing it anyway, but you're doing it naturally. Like you're being who you are. Now I'm being who I am. And once I became who I am and you became who you are, then everything fell into place. But there really was a lot of healing work. So I do want to say this. So in the book, it says some rise, some fall, how to be one of the lucky ones to get back up. So what's the difference? What's the difference between someone who rises and someone who falls? And the difference is determination, right? Because I want to get back up. So you need determination, right? And then you need a plan, and then you need support. And I break that into two pieces. One is inner harmony and outer goals. So you're doing the inner work, healing. Is it going to work? Is it going to make a difference? I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing it. And then the second piece is you have goals because you need something bigger than yourself to shoot for. And career is all goals. Like you can be doing your inner work and still update your resume and still look for a job or still propose a new project at work. But the inner work gives you more courage to really take on the outer stuff. And the outer stuff is how you get out of the situation that you're in, because you're probably not in a great place. Even if you're making a lot of money, you're probably still not in a great place. And it's time to segue. Once you do that healing work, you're not the same person anymore. So there is work that you will do you probably will do something else because it just won't be a match for you anymore.
I think that another part that really touched me was the spiritual part. And I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. I do think that there is a very big part when we're healing of a spiritual side, and you tapped into that to help you heal. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I love the spiritual sides because what I found out in my journey is not everything that affects you today has happened in this current life, and that you have past lives and you have things that you have gone through in your past life that you didn't get a chance to complete. So you came here to complete it. My goal was slavery to freedom. Slavery to freedom. So what I found out in past lives is I didn't really get to be myself, and I was a slave in different situations, and I came here to be free. But in order for me to be free, I had to be a slave again. I had to be a slave again. And so I chose an abusive home where it was a little bit of slavery, and I worked my way out of it. And who knows, maybe that has been my goal for all of these lifetimes. And this is the time that I've done it. But the lineage of abuse in my family ends with me. And all that karma and all that stuff, it has been completed, and I've declared it complete, and it is complete. And my son is going to have a different relationship with people going forward. He's going to choose someone who's healthier. There's going to be a complete difference in his life as my life was when I grew up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how I felt about my children. And I'll confess that when my children were little, I had trouble because I'd never been taught how to nurture. I'd only ever known the abuse that I had in my home. And I did take care of my brother and sister a good bit, but they were older when that happened. I did stumble through that. And I look back and think of some of the things that I did wrong, and I feel bad about it. But then I remind myself, that's in the past. I once or twice did this or did that, whatever it was. And the kids are grown, and all of them, the girls are doing fantastic. My son has a little bit of he needs a little bit of therapy, but I can't convince him to go.
I think we all need therapy. Who
Yeah,
doesn't need
I
therapy?
do too.
I
And
love
so
therapy. Therapy's awesome.
it's so in the end, I like the way you say that we fall down and how to be one of the lucky ones that gets
You got to
back.
get back up. I think that you should expect to fall. Everybody
Yes.
has something that they go through in their lives. Mine was child abuse. Yours was child abuse. Everybody has something. You will fall. And what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I believe that most people want to get back up. They're just not sure how to get back up, or they need time to get back up. But I think that we fall so we can get back up, so we can give it back to other people. There is a giving backness to this whole madness. And I think that's why we went through what we went through.
And I think for the spiritual side, there is a spiritual element that wants you to get back up, that is cheering for you to get back up.
Yes.
But you have to recognize that. And it took me a long time to recognize it, but I finally did. It's in the end, as you say, whatever trauma that you're bringing, because some of us have been bullied. Bullying is a really traumatic experience also. So it doesn't have to be something that your parents did to you while you and I had to suffer through that. There are other things that happen in people's lives. And if they can tap into that spiritual guide, then they will get back up. But we're getting towards the end of the show. And let me say that if you're struggling, this will help you get back up. I promise you. I like to read from my author's books. I want to read in Deborah's conclusion. And she says, as I have said throughout the book, I am not a therapist. I am a regular person who went through a horrible beginning, survived, and has healed herself. My journey is within these pages. This book has been a wonderful healing experience for me as well. I feel lighter and freer. And I am not out of the woods yet. My journey continues. This book is not, I am healed and that's it. I still struggle sometimes. I still have anxiety. Some nights I have trouble sleeping, and some days it's a challenge to get out of bed. The memories of my child abuse still live inside me, and they come to the surface in times of stress.
That's the workplace. The workplace is stress. What's the most stressful places in the world is the workplace, and all of the triggers and all that unhealed stuff it comes right to the surface, and you can't even stop it. It's like a train that hits you.
Yeah, so
like
exactly. That's what I really want to leave everyone with, that little bit of reading I did from Deborah's book. And I want to thank you, Deborah, for being on the show. You're a fantastic guest. And I will be writing my blog post. I will include all of the ways to get in touch with Deborah. Is it best to connect with you on LinkedIn, Deborah, or would you like?
Yes, I'm a LinkedIn person. Yes. Or my website, surpassyourdreams.com.
Yeah. So we'll put all that in the blog itself. And maybe we'll have Deborah back again and we'll talk a little bit more about this, because I think this is a topic that we could talk not only hours about, but that has a lot of purpose and, what do I want to say, a lot of purpose, and the word just escaped my head.
Well, it'll never change, because you know, as long as you have a career, you need the book.
There you go. There you go. All right. Thank you, Deborah, for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
This is Yvonne DeVita from Smart Conversations and Master Book Builders, and we'll see you next time.